Today we are going to be painting this autumn fall inspired wreath. You'll need watercolor paper, watercolor paints, of course, your paintbrush, and something circular so you can draw the circle that we'll use to paint the wreath on. All right, we're gonna get started painting this wreath, and the first thing you're gonna wanna do is to make a circle. Grab anything in your house that is circular, or maybe you have a protractor around. I'm just gonna use this huge bucket right here and just lightly draw a circle because that's gonna be our guideline for our wreath. So just lightly, there we are. You might not be able to see it, but I can see it. And now we can start mixing up our colors. So you're gonna wanna have your paint palette and some brushes. I think I've mentioned this in my other videos, but I really love the Pigeon Letters makes brushes, and I absolutely love them. She sells them on Etsy. Just search the Pigeon Letters. And okay, so I'm using a size 6 brush, and we are going to mix up some fall-y colors. I obviously already have something on my palette here, but feel free to mix up whatever colors you guys want, like orangey tones. If you ever want to mute a color, use the opposite of that color. So for red, you're gonna just add a little blue. I do want to mute it a little bit because I don't want it to be too bright because we're going for those fall colors. And then I also want to do a yellow. This color, I love it. It's called Indian Yellow. It's really rich and beautiful. I have brown in here, so it is going to mute it. I definitely don't want it to be that color yellow, so I'm just gonna add more and more until I get the brightness back. But I do like how it's muting it just slightly. So we're gonna have yellows, oranges, and then our greens, I wanna do kind of some sagey greens. We're not gonna do super bright greens because we're keeping with the autumn vibe. Okay, I'm gonna add a little more orange over here. Go. And so green, I have some green. I was working on a house portrait. I actually have a color palette that's pretty fallish in here because I was working on a painting that was, the photo was taken in the fall. So I have green here, and I'm just going to, I believe this is Payne's Gray that I have in here, to mute it down. Okay, our colors are all mixed up. I made a little bit of a mess here. And I know I've explained this to you guys before, but I like to use a cool and warm colors for my water. That way it doesn't get too murky. So the way I like to start off my wreath is I like to paint my big blooms first. This is going to be more of a loose style. I'm not doing super realistic, so we can be, we don't have to be super careful about everything drying. I really love this orange, or this really kind of yellowy color, so I'm gonna grab that. I'm gonna keep my paint off to the side. I'm sorry you guys can't see it. It's just, I wanna make sure that this is in focus for you. Okay, I have my size 6 paintbrush. I've loaded it up with paint. Your paint should not be dripping off of your brush. If it's dripping off of your brush, then you probably have it a little too watery. I'm gonna come here and I'm going to, I'm at about 45-degree angle, press and kind of swirl around. Press and come back. I'm just making these petals. This is gonna be an open flower. I'm gonna go in and rinse off my brush a bit and come in here and make lighter and see how it kind of bleeds. So I'm just making this petal. And I'm gonna pull out a petal here. Okay, I'm gonna let that dry a little bit before I fill in the middle. But then I wanna do a yellow flower as well over here, but I'm going to make the flower almost like it's closed and we're looking at it from a side view. Same thing, I'm pointing, pulling, I'm pressing down, see how my brush fans out, and then coming back. Sorry, my dog is, Beignet, please be quiet. My dog is barking. Again, this is where the flower starts, so I'm pointing and pulling up. I highly recommend just getting some flowers and looking at them and painting. It will really help you just to acknowledge how the flower is. So where it's growing, what it would look like from the side, all those fun things. Okay, I'm gonna do one more. And this one I'm gonna make, so it's a side view, but you're able to see the middle of the flower a little bit. So it's almost like a little cup. And then the leaves are coming out this way. So I'm gonna rinse off a little bit and just that same point, press, bring it in. And then sometimes you don't have to use that movement. You can just kind of fill it in like this. Okay, and we'll come back and make that center. I do want to say that when you first start, you might look at this and be like, oh, it's so ugly. I encourage you to keep going, especially with wreaths. It's really hard to envision how it's going to look at the end, but I promise you, you'll love it. Or you'll at least will be happy with what you came up with. All right, I'm moving on to that kind of darker orange color. And I want to make maybe some little kind of rosebuds. So I'm gonna rinse off a little bit. And for roses, you're just making these little C curves. If you have too much water on your brush, just lightly dip it on a paper towel. That's what I do. And make these. And you wanna make the circles touch and then press down and you can fan out. And then maybe rinse off some of your water. Same thing, just these little circles. Make it a little random. You don't want it to just be circle, 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 so it just looks like this blob. And if you touch some points, that looks good too, and then leave a little white. I'm going to grab a little darker pigment and poke some in here. Again, this is a loose style, so it's okay. It doesn't need to be perfect. Okay, so I have my little rose there. There's a dog hair right there. I'm going to maybe grab a little more yellow for this next rose. And I'm gonna put it over here. That's my dog tearing up something in the background. I am going to move her outside really quick. Stay with me. I'm just making those circular, I'm pointing and then pressing, pointing and pressing. And if you want, you can add in some darker areas. I'm gonna do a bud down here. So for the bud, similar to how we did this one, I'm pointing, pulling, and swirling around. And then just pointing, I'm leaving a little white space here. And I'm actually happy with that as a little bud. Now we're gonna go back and add some brown in the middle of these flowers. So just pick up a brown and just dot, dot. It might bleed a little and that's okay, we like that look. Now this one, the dots are here, or the little pollen. And then this one, you would not be able to see it there. Okay, now that we've got our big blooms, we wanna go in and paint our leaves. If you guys aren't familiar with painting leaves, I'll give you a very short tutorial right here. I'm just gonna do the leaves off the side. There are so many different kinds of leaves. but the one that is the most popular that you see often is created like this. So I have my brush at about a 45-degree angle. I point. I'm barely putting any pressure, and then I add pressure and I lift, lift, lift until it gets pointy again. Then I come back, pointed, push, lift, and meet that point again. So that's kind of your basic leaf shape, but obviously leaves come in all different sizes and shapes. So, I mean, you could do a leaf by just pressing like this and then drawing a little line to connect them. Lots of different ways. For this, we're going to make the leaves go round, 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 round to here. So we're gonna go this way. Pick up some green, and I'm going to draw a line, so with the tip of my brush, along here. Now, I wouldn't wanna do this all the way around the whole wreath because then it just wouldn't look very interesting. But for here, I'm gonna do it right here. And then I'm gonna make little branches coming off and go in, and the same idea with the same way I painted that leaf. Point, press, lift. Point, press, lift. Now, if I did all the leaves this color, it would be really boring. So I need to add a variation. I'm gonna add a little more pigment, like a darker pigment, so the leaf is slightly different. And I'm doing the leaves the same way. So this has a little more pigment on it. Same thing. Point, press, point. And we're gonna make this one kind of disappear behind this. And just make this go in a little bit more. And maybe I'll make one more leaf kind of coming out this way. It's a little bit lighter. I've washed off my brush a little bit. Continue. I'm gonna make some smaller leaves coming out here. Almost like thyme or rosemary. I'm going to do a really light line. Feel free to use a smaller brush if you're having a hard time controlling this brush. So I made two little lines with the point of my paintbrush. And then I'm just coming in here kind of with the side of my brush and tapping. There's actually too much water there, okay? So I'm going to press onto my paper towel and then come back and press. And I'm not going to make all of these the exact same shades. These are pretty light. I'm gonna grab a little bit darker pigment because I want some to be darker. And I'm just pressing, pressing, pressing. And there's too much water again. The line between too much water and not enough water is very thin. So you're just gonna learn that over time. Rinse off, get a little bit lighter pigment. There we go. And make one little branch of the same coming out over here. With wreaths, it's really about practice. So the more you practice this, the more you're gonna know where to place things. I will say that composition is something that takes a while to learn. And don't be too hard on yourself. It's totally normal. You want the eye to flow. You want it to be something that people want to look at. And you'll learn that over time the more you practice. Now we're going to go back to these bigger leaves. And I'm going to make a branch go out like this and then one go out like this. If at any time you feel like you want to add another flower, you can totally do that. I'm just showing the way I'm doing this wreath, but feel free to do it the way you want. Again, we're making these kind of leaves, so we're pointing, pressing, lifting. Point, press your brush down, lift. Sometimes you have to come up and move the paint a little bit. That's okay. I'm gonna rinse so I get a lighter color. Do one over here. I didn't make the little branches coming off of this one, but feel free to make them if you want to. Another cool thing you can do is to cross the leaves. So maybe I want this one to come over. Since this is a loose style, they can touch, it's okay. I'm gonna make a little baby leaf over here. Okay, and then a small leaf. We don't wanna go too crazy out here. We still are following this circle. Otherwise, it's not gonna make sense if I made a big branch just going this way. Gonna make a little leaf here. Okay, then I want to add in some of these pretty little guys. That's the technical term, pretty little guys. So here and here. So again, drawing those thin lines and just coming in and dotting. And that's too much water, so tap. I always keep a paper towel with me, you guys. It's necessary for watercolor artwork. Otherwise, sometimes you just have way too much water and it can really affect the way that your painting looks. Just tapping in these little teeny leaves, similar to thyme, the herb thyme. Okay. And we're just gonna keep coming along. Going back to those big leaves again. This time maybe go like this and this. And I'll make those little branches. If you're having a hard time with this shape of the leaf, it comes with practice. I really struggled with them early on. There's so many ways you can do leaves though. So if you just hate it, then by all means, do what's best for you. Figure out a way that you like to paint leaves. I think in the artist community a lot, we get so stuck on, well, this is how so-and-so does their leaves, so I have to do them that way. And that is not how artists discover new techniques and new things. So it's okay to go outside the box and to paint in a different way. That is why art is so amazing, because you can really, there are no rules, you know? Like I can tell you the techniques like, hey, you don't want to have too much water on your brush. But I guarantee that there's somebody who paints with a ton of water, but they have a unique way of doing it, and I'm sure they can sell their art as well. So never feel like you have to follow something just because somebody says so. It's in the nature of an artist to push the envelope, and that's okay. We might have gone a little too far out here, but we can make up for that down here. I do want to add in some brown. Actually, we're gonna wait until the end to do that. So let's continue with the leaves here. I do feel like I want to put another yellow flower here. So I can do that because this is my painting. I'm going to do one similar to this, but I'm gonna face it this way. I have my paint and I'm just making that little cup, right? That petal that is kind of sitting a side view that I'm gonna rinse off my brush so it's a little lighter. And just come around, point, pull it back, and then just do that. Maybe I wanna darken this a little bit. Now going back to green, I'm going to go like this because we got a little far out here, so I want to make up for it down here. And little branches, point, pull, point, press, pull, which is also similar to calligraphy. Because when you want thin lines, you have to press up, and when you want thick lines, you have to press down. Point, press. If you are finding that your points aren't very pointed, two things could be happening. One, you might just not have mastered the technique yet, Or the other thing that could be happening is your brush isn't very good. It was happening to me for a while when I first started because my brush wasn't pointed. So when you rinse your brush off, it should come to a nice point, right? This is a pretty nice point. If it doesn't and it's kind of flat, then the brush is not the quality that you need for painting. I did these leaves kind of a lot bigger than the other ones. I'll do some smaller ones down here. Oops. I'm going to make a leaf come out here. You'll start to get an eye for things the more you paint. You'll think, okay, you know, obviously something's missing right here. We got to fill in this place. And then I felt like something was missing here, so I filled in right there. I'm going to add these little guys. I'm gonna go here, doop. And just literally just pressing down. And then make sure you change it up and you get a little darker color every once in a while. Every once in a while I'll get like a darker or lighter color. Variation in shades is key to watercolor. If you do something just flat, it's going to look, or sorry, if you do something just one shade, it's going to look very flat. All right, I'm pretty happy with the overall look. We need to add brown here. So grab kind of a darker brown, just poke it in. It's okay if it bleeds. It's the look we're going for. Oh, this little bud right here, I'm going to make it look like there's a stem coming up. Now we want to add these little berries on these twigs. So I'm grabbing my brown. Feel free to grab a smaller brush if you don't feel comfortable making small lines with your size 6. And I'm just going like this. I am barely putting any pressure down at all. Just super light, like I'm drawing. And I'm just wanting to fill in areas, make it kind of look even. It's okay if it bleeds. Put some right here, maybe right here. And try to do varying, like you don't want all of them just to have 2. Try to do some 2, some 3. You could even do some 4. And then I'm going to fill in a couple areas that I think might benefit from having some brown. Okay, now we are going to grab that orangey red color and make sure that your paint is not too wet, but it is okay if it bleeds, and just making a dot. See, it's gonna bleed a little bit, that's okay. Making these little dots, little berries, and not all of them have to have berries. Do what you want. Like I'm not gonna put berries there, I'm not gonna put berries there, I'll do one here. And it's good to vary the colors if you can, so some make darker than others. And there you have it. We have completed our little wreath. Let me know if you guys like this tutorial. Let me know how you're gonna use your wreath. I would love to know. Also, if you wanna tag me, I'm Lavender and C on Instagram, and I would love to see what you guys create. Thanks for watching, have an awesome day.